Truly a surreal moment. It feels like almost nighttime. It's been really breezy, chilly. The shadows are all like little rings as well. It's just a beautiful sight. Kind of hard to put into words the exact feeling. I mean, we've been preparing for this for a while. We've, been tracking this all morning with our Eclipse Explorer, but actually to see it in person and to take it in, it's of the Texas coast on the Gulf, and the morning is far from over here for a lot of folks in just incredible tracking this. And actually, Kerrville, we're in the path of the total solar eclipse for next year. So if I turn on the path for next year, you can see X marks the spot here in Kerrville. We're going to be coming right back here to witness this incredible cosmic event once again, getting that incredible view. Just really, again, very hard to put into words just how amazing this is. Just a stunning experience, and it's been an honor to be here with you this morning, tracking this event as it's moved across. We started the morning in Eugene, Oregon. Now it has arrived and already passed us in Kerrville. I'll continue to track it for a little bit longer here, but for now, back to you, Tahira.
Thank you, James. And folks, this is just the beginning. Today's event kickstarts NASA's heliophysics big year, which is a year where we're encouraging people to do as many sun-related activities as possible in the lead up to next year's total solar eclipse. Now, Joy and Michael in Albuquerque are going to share some of the ways you can play a part. Joy, what can we look forward to?
Now that the annular eclipse is here, the fun has just begun. So today is the official launch of NASA's heliophysics big year. This is a year-long celebration of solar science, and it's modeled after the big year concept from citizen scientists in the bird watching community. So they're challenged to see as many birds as they can, but in the heliophysics big year, we're challenging you to do as many sun science related activities as possible. And so one way to participate is through NASA's citizen science projects. Here are a few sun-related ones you could join.
Did you know that you can participate in solar eclipse science with NASA? NASA's citizen science projects are collaborations between scientists and members of the public, no matter your citizenship. Several volunteer science projects are gearing up for the 2024 total solar eclipse that you can join. Total solar eclipses don't just look cool, they provide a rare chance to see the sun's faint outer atmosphere. Using telescopes and cameras that are safe for viewing the sun, volunteer scientists across North America will capture images of the total solar eclipse. Scientists will study these images in detail, tracking how plumes of solar material move through the sun's atmosphere. But be careful, without proper tools and techniques, you can damage your eyes and your camera. Did you know you can listen to an eclipse too? Amateur or ham radio operators will send radio messages to one another during the eclipse to see how changes in the upper atmosphere distort radio signals. As the moon blocks one portion of the sun, it can make other portions easier to see. Working with local scientists at an observatory in Southern California, participants will observe magnetic hotspots on the sun as the moon passes over them, revealing details they normally can't detect. Want to learn more? Follow Do NASA Science on X and Facebook to see how you can get involved in NASA citizen science.
So as you can see in the telescope view, the moon is now moving away from the sun, which is really, really amazing that we're still seeing this partial eclipse.
Absolutely, and I think I can see a sunspot in there too, and I think on one of the earlier shots, I could see a prominence. So we're seeing NASA's sun science happening in real time.
So we're getting some amazing questions online. Shall we ask some more?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Answer some more. Okay, so we have a question from Peter Chang on X, and they ask, can filtered telescopes see flares on the sun during totality?
Oh, that's a really good question. The answer is yes. It depends on what filter, though. So if you use just a white light filter, then you have to have an exceptionally large flare in order to be able to see it. If you use a filter like an H-alpha filter that specifically selects one one color of red light, then you're going to be able to see flares a little bit more frequently, even even during totality as the corona adjusts to that flare as it erupts.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Yuri on X asks, if a solar system had more than one star, would they have more solar eclipses? Would they all look like the same eclipses that we have here on Earth?
Ooh, that is getting a little sci-fi, but that's okay. So if we had more than one sun, you'd have to have a moon to block both suns, or maybe two moons to block both suns. So you'd have to have a very complex geometry to get everything lined up perfectly so you could get solar eclipses with two suns and two moons, and oh, it would get very complicated.
Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're joined with NASA's heliophysics lead, Denise Hill, who's going to tell us more about how you can participate in the heliophysics big year. Hi, Denise, how are you today?
Great. Did you see that? That was my first annular eclipse, and we got a prominence. I am so stoked. That was the dopest thing ever. Okay, okay. Heliophysics big year. So, as you've heard before, the sun touches everything. And the Heliophysics Big Year is a celebration, a global celebration of sun and sun science and what we have going on. But it's also, I think I heard you say it, Michael, it's about the community and being communal and just the unity of hearing everybody cheer. The sun touches us all in so many different ways. And so the Heliophysics Big Year is going to help us kind of discover all the ways the sun touches us scientifically, but in other ways as well.
And why is it a big year for the sun?
So, you saw what just happened, right? Oh, well, that's nothing. Coming up in April 8th, we have the total solar eclipse, and then Parker Solar Probe's closest approach, which will end out the Heliophysics Big Year, but it's the mission that has literally touched the sun, and it's going to be making its closest approach. And then from there, every single month during the Heliophysics Big Year, and it's a big year because it's more than 12 months, but during that time, we have themes for on different ways people can explore the sun and how it touches them. So we have themes like fashion. We're going to be delving into physical and mental and emotional health. The sun touches us in so many ways besides. And then we have missions. In just a couple weeks, we have our AWE mission that is launching, and it's going to be the first space weather station on ISS. And we are so excited. You have no idea.
Wow, there's so many new NASA events and opportunities coming up. Is there any other like science events that maybe people could get involved with themselves?
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked about citizen science a bunch, and that is one of the ways for sure for people to get involved and to do NASA science with real scientists. And then there's also, like, you are a scientist. Every single one of us is a scientist. And we're going to share ways that you can explore the sun, do your own little scientific investigations yourself. And so, yeah, the science is going to be front and center. There's also going to be some other things as well.
That's great. So what are you most excited about in this upcoming big year?
For me, it's the unity, right? Like the sun touches, it doesn't matter what race you are, what ethnicity, what culture, religion, whether you live in a rural community, urban community, it doesn't matter. The sun touches us all. And we like to call it our extraordinarily ordinary sun, because our sun is supposed to just be ordinary. But it is responsible and touches every living thing on Earth. And no other star that we know of has that level of responsibility. So that gives me hope that you can be ordinary and have an extraordinary impact.
That's amazing.
Well, I think our sun's pretty extraordinary by itself, so I don't know.
Thank you so much for joining us, Denise.
Thanks for having me.
So if you want to learn more about the Heliophysics Big Year, you can visit go.nasa.gov/heliobigyear. Michael, are you excited for the Heliophysics Big Year?
I am so excited because I get to be a rock star for an entire year, and then I go back to being a normal scientist again. No, it's going to be fantastic for science, for outreach, for everything. I am so excited for this.
Well, the Heliophysics Big Year has so many opportunities for folks around the world to get involved with NASA science, especially during the 2024 total solar eclipse. And one group of citizen scientists will be using their sensors to make observations. They'll gather sound recordings and help with data analysis to understand how wildlife will be impacted by solar eclipses. And you can help them too, no matter your citizenship. So now let's learn more.
During a total solar eclipse, it is almost like day becomes night very quickly.
So knowing that there's going to be a change in that light and life-giving energy means that we can predict when animals are going to have a rapid shift in their behavior,
which results in changes in the acoustic environment or the soundscape.
So the Eclipse Soundscapes project is a project to determine how eclipses affect life here on Earth.
And there's a lot more to observation than just what you see. It's also important to think about what you hear.
We're measuring how the rapid onset of darkness during an eclipse affects wildlife by measuring the changes in sounds that they make.
The general public is best suited for this type of project because the general public is everywhere.
And that's really the power of the participatory science component of this project. It enables recordings and observations of soundscapes across the diversity of ecosystems covered by the path of totality. We might think of some ecosystems having a greater influence of human activities on the soundscape, whereas in other ecosystems, say a remote part of a national park, we might have a lower influence of human activities and greater influence from the sounds of life and Earth.
The only way to properly preserve a species is to understand it. The only way to understand it is through scientific study on their behavior, their patterns, and their habitat requirements. One of the things we'll be doing during the total solar eclipse is setting up these recording stations. So these are our acoustic monitoring stations. And what we're doing is listening for calls of the different bat species with the hopes of maybe picking up some of those endangered species like the northern long-eared bat. We're hoping the results of this study will inform us about the health of our bat populations on Hot Springs National Park and help improve future conservation efforts.
The Eclipse Soundscapes project is an inclusive and accessible project that is inviting the general public to get involved in NASA science alongside scientists and subject matter experts.
Wherever you take your observations, you might be giving us information that has never been recorded before. And that is really useful and interesting to a scientist.
Wow, that sounds like an exciting project that anyone can get involved with. So if you want to learn more about Eclipse Soundscapes or any of other NASA's other citizen science opportunities, go to go.nasa.gov/HelioBigYear. Well, thank you to everyone joining us online and here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's been an unforgettable day, hasn't it, Michael?
Oh, it certainly has. I will never forget this day. It has been just a day full of activity and memories that will last a lifetime.
So although the annular eclipse is over in Albuquerque, we still have one more day left at the Balloon Fiesta and 1 year to participate in as many sun signs related activities as possible in the heliophysics big year. So now let's head back to Kerrville, Texas, where Tahira and Gina will chat about the upcoming total solar eclipse. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Joy and Michael. I mean, it sounds like we have so much to look forward to over this next year. And folks, even though peak annularity just passed in Kerrville, Texas, we are still getting an incredible view on this live telescope feed. You can see the moon is now passing over the sun and honestly on its way to make another city's day. Now, it is a good point to remind folks that X marks the spot here in Kerrville, Texas, where the 2024 total solar eclipse will pass in just 6 months. This very lucky city is in the path of totality and will be one of the places to witness the moon completely blocking out the face of the sun and darkening the sky as if it were dawn or dusk. Now, Gina and I are here with NASA Chief Scientist, Dr. Kate Calvin, to learn more about what we can expect for next year. Kate, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Have you. And so, Kate, can you start off and just give us an idea of what science we can expect only for a total solar eclipse?
So one of the things that scientists are really interested in studying is called the corona. It's a part of the sun's atmosphere. It's the source of heat and particles that come towards Earth. But normally it's too bright, and so you can't really observe it directly. Scientists use instruments called chronographs to block some of that light, but it's still hard to see parts of the corona.
It's not the same as a total eclipse?
Yeah, the total eclipse gives the best environment for studying the corona.
Right, but we were so lucky to just see that prominence coming off of the sun.
And what is the prominence?
And so that's actually some of that solar particles, some of the particles coming off of the sun, the ejecta, and we can kind of see it hanging there, which either turns into an eruption, some of that activity that we can observe, or it can kind of just quiet down as well. Yeah. So, Kate, can you tell us, how can the public get involved with the total solar eclipse?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so we have a number of citizen science projects. These are projects where people anywhere around the world can help contribute to our science. You don't have to be in the path of totality to contribute. We have projects for everyone. And they're different projects. Some of them you need cameras or telescopes or equipment. Others you can use just with your cell phone. So we have one project that's called On the Globe Observer app. It's to help understand the effect of eclipses on Earth's weather, and you can do that just with your phone.
Do you need a science background, or?
Anyone can contribute. We walk you through what you need to do, and sometimes it's as simple as taking a picture or recording a sound. And so you can all contribute to our science.
So anybody can get involved?
Anyone can get involved.
Perfect. And then can you tell us a little more how the eclipse science that we're doing will help to inform kind of the broader science at NASA?
Yeah, and so like I said, we're trying to study the corona, this source of heat and particles towards Earth. They affect Earth. They can disrupt electronics. They can lead to northern lights. So we're really interested in Earth and understanding the effects on Earth. But there's also the sun affects other planets and bodies in the solar system, like the moon and Mars. And so when we think about exploring the solar system, we want to understand the sun and its role in it.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, we have so much to look forward to next year. I want to know, real quick, what's your peak excitement for next year's total solar eclipse? We'll start with you, and then Kate would love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm really excited to compare what we saw today, that annular eclipse. How does it compare to that total solar eclipse? I got to see a total in 2017, but every eclipse is unique, and so
such a scientist.
I know,
want to do
that
a
is
little
my experiment. How many data points can I get? But not just that, we're hearing everything about the heliophysics big year, and so it kicks off today, and that total solar eclipse in April will be the next event. So how many events can I participate in for the heliophysics big year?
Amazing. What about you, Kate?
I'm interested in sort of the things beyond just what you see, but what you feel, so that it's going to get cooler, and we might hear some animals.
Today, we felt that.
Yeah, and I really want the full body experience of the eclipse.
That is incredible. And I mean, today has been a spectacular day. So folks, let's check in one last time with James at our eclipse desk to see how he's doing. James, what's it like?
Yeah, Tahira, I'm still in awe of the moment that we just had here a couple minutes ago here in Kerrville, Texas. Just a stunning view of that ring of fire here. And as you can see on our Eclipse Explorer, the annularity has now shifted off into the Gulf of Mexico. So if you're in a boat out there, you'll have a phenomenal view. But we're going to be here once again next year, April 8th, 2024 in Kerrville, Texas. I've got the path of the 2024 total solar eclipse up here on the screen. You can see it's tracking right through us in Kerrville and then affecting an entirely new area here that is going to be stretching all the way up to parts of New England, all the way up to Maine, even parts of Canada. So a really large area there as well. So definitely save those pinhole projectors and certainly keep a hold of those eclipse glasses. You're going to need them for next year. We're going to be right back to cover all of that incredible stuff next year with you. It's been amazing tracking this today. And again, this is still moving onwards to Central America and South America. So if you're tuning in from there, you have a great view incoming. And in many parts of the country, there's still that partial eclipse. A truly awe-inspiring morning and a wonderful day for all. So thank you so much. Back to you, Tahira.
And thank you so much, James, for bringing us into the action during today's show. Gina, so wow. I mean, this was both of our first experiences. So final thoughts.
I mean, what a day. At this point, I'm ready to look at those calculations for the eclipses and check out not only April, but what else can I see in the future, because these are spectacular.
A little eclipse chaser now.
Exactly. I'll chase them around the world.
No, and it has been so fantastic having you on today's show to really just help break down what we are experiencing today. And so again, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me.
And folks, the action isn't over yet. You can continue to watch views of today's annular eclipse as it moves across the path by visiting go.nasa.gov/eclipse 2023 live. That live stream will continue running until 4:30 p.m. Eastern as this eclipse continues its way through Central and South America. Now, unlike today's Ring of Fire effect, we are going to witness the moon completely block out the face of the sun during next year's total solar eclipse. The sky is going to darken as if it were dawn or dusk. You can learn more about eclipses and what's in store for April 8th, 2024 by visiting go.nasa.gov/eclipses. The total solar eclipse is sure to be a rare event and one you will not want to miss. So stay up to date with sun-related events and how we are studying our star by following NASA Sun on social media. Folks, thank you to everyone who has tuned in to today's coverage of the 2023 annular solar eclipse. We hope to see you back here next April as we ring in the last total solar eclipse that will pass through the mainland U.S. for 2 decades. Now, here's how you can celebrate the countdown to April 8th by joining our heliophysics big year.
We are one of 100 billion stars in a vast galaxy, but for all of human culture on Earth, one sun that nourishes us all.
That is what stirs humankind. That's what unites us.
Experience the wonder, the beauty, and the power of our star.
One sun across space, time, and culture.
Let us continue the quest to unfold this universe. And let us continue to find unity in our discovery. It's a new era of pioneers, star sailors, thinkers, and adventurers.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Let's go.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe.
This is a science mission on par with Apollo missions, Space Shuttle, International Space Station, and Hubble missions. For nearly 2 decades, thousands of people around the world, many spending their entire careers, built the James Webb Space Telescope. And it all comes down to this.
Once we launch the James Webb Space Telescope, there are no second chances. We have 300 single-point failure items, and they all have to work right. When you're 1 million miles away from the Earth, you can't send someone to fix it.
We've never put a telescope this large in space. We want to see distant parts of the universe humans have never seen before. Looking back in time almost 14 billion years to see the first galaxies that formed after the Big Bang. And we want to search for the building blocks of life in the atmospheres of planets orbiting distant stars. To unfold the history of the universe, we must first unfold this telescope.
This is the largest primary mirror, the largest sun shield, and the most powerful space telescope ever built. And yet, this large telescope needs to fit inside a 5.4 meter diameter rocket fairing. That's the largest fairing size available on any rocket, and it's the fairing size on our ride to space. The Ariane 5, provided by the European Space Agency, is one of the world's most powerful rockets. To cheat the fairing size limit, we built Webb to fold like origami to fit inside the rocket fairing. And this brings us to our most challenging part of this mission, unfolding it in space.
This thing. Got it. Think of what you're doing. You're taking this extraordinarily delicate, precise, state-of-the-art scientific instrument, you're slapping it on a rocket, and for the next 8 minutes, the explosion from that rocket is following you into outer space. Vibrating you. Shaking you. Everything that goes into outer space has to live through this environment and work once it gets there without having someone come to fix it.
Two weeks. That's how long it will take to fully deploy the Webb telescope. We can take longer if we need to, but those 2 weeks after launch are going to be nail-biters. This is the Mission Operations Center at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore. Those 2 weeks after launch will be like our Super Bowl, World Cup, you pick the analogy. Years of training comes down to these moments.
The Webb Observatory has 50 major deployments, 50 depending on how you categorize them, and 178 release mechanisms must work to deploy those 50 parts. Every single one of them must work. Unfolding Webb is hands down the most complicated spacecraft activity we've ever done. Then again, nothing about Webb is easy. We've never done any of this before. There's nothing simple about sending anything into space. You can't do it without taking risks.
This mission is squarely in new spacecraft territory. Webb is the perfect example of science desire driving engineering capability to new frontiers. Webb's unique design was born from reasoned engineering to accomplish its science goals.
Here's the plan. Shortly after launch, we unfold Webb's solar panel for power and our Huygens antenna for communication. About 12 hours later, we have an important engine firing that sends Webb on the proper course towards its orbital destination, about 1 million miles away. That's where Webb will do its science. Webb will be moving so fast, it passes the moon's orbit in 1.5 days, half the time it took Apollo astronauts to reach lunar orbit. First, we lower the sunshield pallet, then raise Webb's primary mirror and instruments away from the sunshield. The solar wind will push us around with the sunshield open, so we'll unfold a trim tab to help keep us stable.
We got these huge, iconic, golden segmented mirrors that will help us deliver amazing new images from the cosmos. But in some ways, the sun shield is a lot more complicated, and it's just as essential. Without it, nothing works.
Here we've got 5 sun shield layers, of approximately 8,900 square feet, almost the size of 3 tennis courts, a very thin Kapton material, about 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch thick. Making them go where you want them to go in zero-G is extremely challenging.
The sun shield shades the telescope from the heat of the sun, earth, and moon. The concept is simple, but there is nothing simple about the design or operation, especially when you get to space. Webb's sun shield assembly includes 140 release mechanisms, approximately 70 hinge assemblies, 8 deployment motors, bearings, springs, gears, about 400 pulleys, and 90 cables totaling 1,312 feet. All this just to keep the sun shield under control as it unfolds. First, we release these special restraints that protect the sun shield during launch. They roll out of the way, but not all the way until we are ready to deploy aside. Next, we release a set of covers over the core region. Now comes the critical point. All 107 sun shield release mechanisms need to fire on cue. 107. They free the 5 sun shield layers, allowing them to extend as the mid-booms deploy.
Sun shield fully deployed, we start setting up the optics. First, the secondary mirror is extended and locked into place, and a special radiator behind Webb is extended, which helps further lower the temperature of the science instruments. Finally, we open the primary mirror's wings and lock them in place. With that done, Webb is in its final configuration, but we're not done yet.
After 47 deployments, and accomplishing the hardest spacecraft unfolding NASA has ever done, Webb still won't be ready for science.
While the instruments cool, we'll control motors behind each of Webb's 18 mirror segments, a secondary mirror, and the fine steering mirror located inside the center of the primary mirror. We'll precisely align the mirror segments to form a perfect mirror. Then, Webb will be ready to explore the cosmos.
Mission and liftoff. Touchdown confirmed.
Welcome to NASA Edge,
an inside and outside look at all things NASA.
We're here in sunny Florida at the NASA Kennedy Space Center.
And joining us now is Mike Tonelli, who is the program manager for the Apollo Challenger Columbia Lessons Learned program.
Thanks for being on the show, Mike.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, this program is near and dear to your heart. Can you tell us a little bit about that Lessons Learned program?
Certainly. The Apollo Challenger Columbia Lessons Learned program is a brand new innovative effort, agency-wide, to take the lessons of the past and showcase them towards a future perspective. So we're looking at a very exciting future for NASA. We've got exciting programs such as SLS going back to the moon by 2024, and a host of other programs and missions that the agency is having. With those new programs and missions also come a brand new workforce, thousands of new people. And a lot of those folks haven't had the time yet to bridge the lessons of the past to the future. And that's our responsibility. So we're taking a look at the past, both the things we did right and the things we could have done better, putting through that lens, focusing on the future, so therefore they can take the lessons of the past, look at the future, and apply those to increase their mission success going forward.
So with Apollo, Challenger, and Columbia, and we're looking at the tragedies that were involved with those three.
We primarily focus on Apollo 1, Apollo 13, Challenger, and Columbia. We teach the lessons of how things could have done better. However, we also do take time to look at the good things, because through 60 years of plus of NASA history, there's a lot of great lessons of NASA's done things really, really well. For example, STS-1, the first launch of Space Shuttle Columbia in 1981, was a stunning success, the first reusable spacecraft in the world. So we want to take examples like that and showcase them, because all the new vehicles coming online, both commercial and NASA, will have their first processing flows and their first launches. So we can glean a lot of great expertise and knowledge from those times as well. So it's a mix both of things we could have done better, plus times we got it spot on right.
Now, a part of that program is the Columbia Room, where you have artifacts from the tragedy of Columbia Space Shuttle. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. When we lost Columbia on February 1st, 2003, we had an effort, the largest ground search in American history, to bring Columbia home. Once that was completed, the decision by our leadership at the time was to make Columbia accessible to the workforce, and is accessible for the purpose of teaching. So Columbia now still has a mission to perform. The crew still has a job to do, and that job is to teach and inspire the next generation. So folks that come into the Columbia Preservation Room will see artifacts of Columbia. As they walk through those, it's a storytelling journey, explaining what happened, but also the lessons that came out of every single phase of the flight, of how decisions were made, and how perhaps in some ways we could have made better decisions. So they can then take those examples, take them back into the workplace, and as they're working on their programs and missions, they can reflect back and hopefully serve as an instrument of guide to them going forward. If they reach those decision points, they can use that as a tool making the right decisions forward.
And of course, there's some sensitivity to that. We want to be very respectful of the family, so you don't allow us going in there and doing the show in there or showing video from that, although people can visit it.
The families have been unbelievably gracious in allowing us to share Columbia with our workforce for teaching purposes. We thank them very much for that. We take really good care of Columbia and protect her very well, as if she was still solid flight hardware flying. So we want to protect the dignity and the respect and reverence of the room. And within those constraints, we take folks in the proper way and make it a teaching, a learning environment, if you will.
Now, as you started this program, how important was it to you to get senior leadership behind this?
That's one thing. When you start a brand new program up, buy-in and collaboration is key. So my first step was to approach our senior leadership. I am so humbled and thankful that our senior leadership stepped right up and gave full support and backing to the creation of this program. And that support has not only continued, but it's strengthened over the last couple of years. So in great appreciation to our leadership for helping us.
Speaking of leadership, we had a chance to sit down with Bob Cabana to get his perspective on the Apollo Challenger Columbia Lessons Learned program. Let's check it out. Bob, I know you're very familiar with the Lessons Learned program, but tell me a little bit about your history with the program.
So it's one of the things I'm very proud of here at Kennedy Space Center. Mike Ginelli has just done an outstanding job. And what we don't want to do is forget the lessons learned from the past. You know, after the Challenger accident, they just kind of took what remained a Challenger and buried it in a silo. And it was like, we want to forget about this and move on. Columbia was different. We have Columbia in a room preserved over in the vehicle assembly building. And it's actually used by universities. Folks can get parts loaned out to them for research to help make spacecraft better, to learn about the impacts of, you know, returning in that kind of environment, what we can do to make it better. But the more important part is not just the way we have treated the hardware, but it's also how we treat our people and the lessons that we want to remember from this. You know, if you look at Apollo, Challenger,